Well, happy Monday. Well, it seemed like that weekend drug on forever. So I'm glad to get into the work week. So anyway, we cut out a bunch of cores this weekend. I did some off camera. One of the things I did do, and it's the first time I've ever done it, was normally I cut from the trailing edge to the leading edge. And if that foam cutter is set up right, they come out perfect. Now, I switched it up. Bob Hunt was talking about he cuts from the leading edge back, and the reason being, he gave the reason. So the first time I've ever done it, I flipped it around, I cut from the leading edge back. It's still a good wing when I was going from the leading or the trailing edge first to the leading edge, but the difference was your hit ratio and your success rate went up. It seemed like the cutter didn't have to be exact. Now, when I mean exact, when that wire, let's just say this is your wing panel, when the wire starts here, it has to end here, and it has to compensate for the taper. When you go with Bob's method, this leading edge first, basically, you have more room at the end just maybe a 16th or an 8th variation, and the wing comes out perfect. So thanks, Bob, for the tip. It was one of these things I sort of thought about and I fought, and then when he mentioned it, I thought, what have I got to lose, right? So I go over there and set it up, and I thought, man, it's a lot more forgiving. So you never know it all. There's always something out there, you're going to figure out and try. So real quick, I'm going to run over there on that laptop. I'm going to make sure the box is clicked for the comments. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to start slicing up some leading and trailing edges. What we're going to do on this foam core over here, we're going to glue a leading and trailing edge onto the foam core. And that's going to dry, I don't know, probably for half the day. What I wanted to do for the rest of the video is take the sheeting, and I'll go over the process of joining the sheets together, how I join them, how I cut them, and then actually how I sand them. So let me get over there and click the comments, and I'll be right back. So when I go over there and click the comments, I can go back later and I can tell if anybody's watching. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to air, which I am. So anyway, that helps. And if somebody has a question, wants to say something, good or bad, it don't matter. Let me get this bandsaw plugged in. Once I get this shop a little bit more nailed down, still in flux here a little bit, I'll start putting permanent cords to where I don't have to chase extension cords around. So I got 1/4 inch here. Okay, it's not the lightest, it's not the heaviest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice out some leading and trailing edges. I've already set this up for a leading edge cut. Now, what I've done, I'm cutting the whole 36 inches. We only need 28.5 inches. So, depending on which way this thing warps and bends, we'll be able to cut off some excess either on one side or the other. It's cut oversized, and I'm using a bandsaw to cut it. Cut oversized for a couple reasons. One reason is it allows the board to actually spring and move, which it will, and then oversized, then I'll razor plane it down to the core. The other thing is when you bandsaw versus cut with a number 11 blade, don't ask me why, but it does something to the fibers, and it doesn't want to spring open as quick. I don't know, and the best way other than the bandsaw is to actually sand down to the line, or sand the part. So So let me get this positioned a little bit here. And we'll start cutting these out. So I've got two leading edges, and then we'll use this third strip out of the sheet for a trailing edge. Come over here and adjust this fence a little bit. And then I got another sheet here. We'll knock out another trailing edge. That. Pretty low ceilings in here, sort of tight. That don't sound good, does it? Alrighty, so anyway, we got that done. Hi Robert, good morning. I'm glad thanks for that comment. At least I know I'm out there. So got my leading and trailing edges, and then I got 7 sheets. 7 sheets per panel. And what I'll do when I glue all these together, you know, I'll use the sheet and I'll split it diagonally, and one will be the top and bottom. So let me grab the cores I cut yesterday, and I'll go ahead and get these leading and trailing edges installed. This is, as far as foam wings go, this 1/4 inch leading and trailing edges, it's sort of old school. What they've done now, and Bob Hunt perfected it, I believe, is he was wrapping the leading and trailing edges. So he would actually mold them. So instead of the leading edge 1/4 inch going on, sand it, they'd actually mold it so the foam would come out a little bit farther. And you take the leading edge, it's been wrapped and molded, and just slide it on top. It cut down, I don't know if one's better or the other. By molding it and putting it on that way, you alleviate a little bit of your problem of sanding. It's real easy to actually start sanding your leading edge and get too far off one way or the other. And that's why I like, once I get this leading edge glued on here and the trailing edge, I'll take this center line and I'll stretch it out and I'll transfer it down the front of the leading and trailing edge. So that way I always have a reference when I'm sanding to it. So these are oversized. And what I'll do, I'll check, make sure that I have enough material here. And then I'll just go through here and I'll just zone a saw off some excess. And I'll just cut them all at once. Okay, there's that. Save these little pieces. You know, you never know if you need hinge blocking or Now this balsa wood is probably 6 pounds. I looked at it. It's not the lightest, it's not the heaviest I got. The sheeting is 6-7 pound, and you're gonna see pretty early on how much sanding goes into it. It's 1/16 inch. It's SIG. Matter of fact, if you look at this sheeting, let me see, where do I see it? I think most of it's SIG. A couple of pieces aren't marked. Could be a a little bit of Lone Star in here too. See if I can see the price. It's sort of blurry. 1/16 by 3 contest wood, 36 inches, $1.05. So that's sort of depressing, isn't it? Now the thing is, when you start going from SIG to Lone Star, even though it's 16, they'll run it through their finish sander, and you're going to get disparities in thickness. This stuff looks really good though, but yeah, even manufacture the same. Sometimes you're going to get differences, but the sanding method I use, you'll find out that it goes pretty quick and you're able to sand it. Okay, now let's get some tape on these things and get the leading and trailing edges installed. I use 2 tapes here. One of them is really sticky. This stuff here is called Edge Lock. It's Scotch Blue Edge Lock number 2080EL. I guess the EL obviously is Edge Lock. This stuff here is the old standard blue tape. The Edge Lock, it's got a different feel and different tackiness a little bit. I don't know if one's better than the other, but that's what I use, blue tape. You can use the yellow paint tape, it's sort of pricey. Let's see, let me get some glue over here. I just use the good old Type Bond, water resistant, or regular, doesn't matter to me. I've used Foam Safe CA to do leading edges. When I was trying to do a lot of them real fast, I'd use the Foam Safe CA. I've used the CA that you actually could use the regular stuff with a foam primer, and then I've used white glue and this. The secret to this whole thing is sparingly. You don't want to glob a lot on there. And I like to go to the foam first. And I'll smear it to where it's got the full coverage. And you want just a light film. You don't want to, load too much on there. You're gluing a 1 pound foam, so if you think you're going to make the joint stronger by a lot of glue, you're not. You're just going to add weight. It's pretty obvious that whatever you glue to 1 pound foam, the foam's going to give way. Okay, now before it tacks up, I like to get it on there pretty quick. You can also slide it a little bit. I don't think that's really that necessary. I'll start in the middle and I'll work my way out. Like I said, this won't be dry enough during this video to actually start shaping it. But I'll go back and start working on these skins. And I'll revisit this when I actually put it in the bag and sheet it. And that'll be the other video I do. I haven't forgot about the hole shot. It's still sitting over there. I just wanted to clean up some of these projects first before I move on to that. It was sort of abandoned. Sort of inspect it as I go. Like I said, this is old school here, but it's still relevant. It's not the latest and greatest way of doing it. Now this template here was made for this process with this trailing edge and leading edge. What I'll do, I think I'll revisit this core and I'll remake the template. I'll remake the template to where it's thicker in the trailing edge. That way I can actually incorporate those hinges. Sparky has a good example of those things where he has a thick trailing edge and he insets the flap into the trailing edge. So that's an option too. But in order to do that, it's going to have to be a different template, so I'll probably go back and make another template. I can make the template to where it incorporates the inset flap at the same time I do the molded leading edge. That'd be a good second video on this stuff. So as you can see, I'm not worried about center lines on the trailing edge yet. I'll transfer this center line from the root and the tip back onto this leading and trailing edge after the fact, after it's all shaped. Let's see here. Got down there, up here, balsa get, yeah. Yeah, I did clean up the workbench a little bit. So yeah, Robert, talking about the balsa, you know, it's hard to get, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. I think, you know, even the big manufacturers, the big guys, they're putting out these foam airplanes, probably to get around that issue maybe. The other thing is supply and demand. I mean, not as many people building anymore. You got the ARFs and you got that kind of thing. So the old hobby store balsa racks are diminishing. One of the things that I wanted to cover, and it's going to be in the experimental phase, is to actually build an airplane without any balsa in it. So I know it's been done, but my twist would be a foam wing, and I'd lay up fiberglass or carbon sheet on the glass, and that would be my wing skin. So I'd pre-cure a sheet of glass, or pre-cure fiberglass on the glass, and then take that and use it as a wing skin, and then vacuum bag that down to the foam. Now you can't, well, it's been done. I've seen back in the old day at Toledo, George Spar would take Mylar and he'd bag the glass right on the wing. It came out right. He put Mylar on it so it was shiny. But the trouble with that is the weight. It wouldn't work out on a stunner. So what I was going to do, I guess in effect, is pre-manufacture the wing skins on the glass. So that way, when the skin went on the foam core, it wouldn't take on the beads. You know, you'd have a hard skin that you'd bag down secondary. So The devil is in the details, and it all has to do with strength, rigidity, and weight. It's hard to find the happy medium to where you get the right weight and everything else falls in line. It's hard to beat balsa. Yeah, I was happy with the way these cores came out. And I'll tell you what, this is virgin bead 1 pound foam. And it is virgin bead, but one of the things I found out in this foam, and it happens every once in a while, there's a little tick mark here. And it's hardly there, but what has happened on some of this foam that's never happened before is I've noticed that the beads, they're like grains of sand, and they run those through a steamer, and then they inject them into the billet mold, and some of the beads are coming through not fully expanded. It's like they were sticking together with moisture or something, so when it came time to steam them, they sort of missed that process, and there's maybe, you know, like the size of a pea, a bunch of unpuffed beads. I guess it'd be like popcorn, you know. All the popcorn's there, but then you got some of it's not popped. So somehow some of the beads aren't popping. And it's, you know, I guess nothing's perfect. Wood's not perfect. Foam's not perfect. The workaround, I guess, for me would be, let's just say I have a wing with that characteristic with a, you know, a hard spot in it. And you could spackle over it. It wouldn't look good if you had to sell something like that, but you know, for my own stuff, it's a workaround. The other thing you can do, if lost foam, cradle and stuff, you know, you can make stuff like that work. So it's not a waste. It's just repurpose it, still use it. But these wings here came out nice. And like I said at the beginning of the video, when I was over there cutting this leading and trailing edge out, Bob Hunt mentioned on the Hangout and talking about cutting the leading edge first. And it's I know Bob could cut them either way and make them look good, but what he was saying, it makes it a lot easier. It's your hit ratio of workable wings goes up considerably. It's more forgiving, let's put it that way. So this tape eventually you might pull loose or whatever, but it'll hang tight enough to where it'll work. Now this piece of wood, if you look down this piece of wood, it's got a bow to it, but it really doesn't matter. It'd been nice if it was perfect. It's a slight bow, but what I'm going to do is sand it to the core, and then, you know, it'll be straight to the core. And then when these things go in a vacuum bag at 7 inches of mercury with the skin on it, I like to take the tube straight edge I got, these things here, well, this thing is inserted into the bag, you know, I sandwich the trailing edge down and bag it. Another thing you could do, you could stick these back in the cradle, put the bag over this wing, put the cradle on the outside of the bag, weight it down to position everything, and then suck the bag down. There's all kinds of ways of doing it. It doesn't really matter as long as it comes out light, straight, and rigid. Now, when I do a lot of these wing skins, and I was trying to get these things and sell them years ago, what I'd do is I'd take this stack of wood and I'd stack it up like this, And I had a little fixture that would clamp the whole stack like this. And it was like two strips of aluminum H channel. And I'd clamp it together, and then I run it across the joiner, and I flip it over and run the other side. So in effect, I was able to actually, within a minute, edge join all these sheets. Now when they were still in that fixture, I'd run the sanding bar over, just sort of kiss it to get the fuzz off. And when they came out of that fixture, they were ready to glue together. And that really cut down a lot of time. Another thing you want to do, you want to cut the span of your wood before you edge it. You don't want to have to edge 36 inches when you only need 30 or whatever. So I like a little overhang. The other thing, have a little overhang and compensate if you want to put it at an angle. So basically I don't measure, I just hold it up there and I get a good look at it. That's all I need to do. So now that I know that this is the length of the sheet, now you'll see some of this tape coming loose. It'll peel back a little bit. Don't worry about it. This glue tacks up really quick. Just cut them all at once. Save this stuff. I always say save it. Up in the attic I got multiple boxes of nothing but that stuff. I need to get the Free Fly Club and where they're building peanut scale or something, give that wood to them. Let's see here. Yeah, the silk span. Foam. Yeah, the blue foam. Now one of the things, Robert, you talk about the blue foam being heavier. I'll take you through this process, and one of the things you might consider if you have a vacuum bag. So you take the blue foam, and the problem with the blue foam around here was you could only get it in 2-inch thick sheets. Well, obviously you need more than that on a stunt wing. So anyway, I was thinking you could take the blue foam, sand it so it mates really well, goes together nice and flat, 3M77 it together or whatever you do. So that way when you cut the core, you're not cutting through the glue seam, you're cutting on the outside of the glue seam. The glue seam runs leading the trailing edge. So you're cutting the core. So okay, now you've got a core like this. Put it in a bag and sheet it with whatever, 1/16, 1/32 even, with epoxy. And then what you do after it comes out of the bag, you're able to run the hot wire really close to the edge. So the problem was you had with white beaded foam that was cored out before you actually sheeted it was, you lose a lot of strength or integrity of the wing. So obviously you can't take a triple cored wing and vacuum bag it because it's cored out and it'll crush. So what I do is vacuum bag it and then core it. The other advantage of coring it after the fact is you're able to core it a heck of a lot thinner than you would have ever been able to before. Sometimes even at the wingtip you might have a 1/16 inch of foam tapered out a little bit more, toward the root. So that's a consideration. Blue foam, you know, 1 pound density versus blue. I'm not sure what the density of that is. Yeah, that's something to look into. I might do a video on something like that. And I've thought about that. The plug that I made, the pod, that's blue foam with fiberglass on it. Lightweight. Yeah, lightweight silk span applied with polyacrylic makes for an easy foam skin on the wingtip. So yeah, polyacrylic's another thing I'd like to try, and I haven't gotten to that point. I've used polyacrylic on doors and woodworking. I never messed with it on an airplane. Let's see here. Let me get my. I got this cutting board. I got this brand new piece of glass. I'm going to try to keep it nice for as long as I can. It won't last long, but try not to get it too scratched up. So let me get a new blade in this thing. I'll just do this the old-fashioned way. Like I said, I could get the joiner out, but I'll do it this way. Not many people have a joiner. So, yeah, this tape is curling up quicker than I thought it would. It tacked up really quick, so I'm alright. Heck, I don't know, it's curing fast enough. Maybe I could razor plane it down. I do know we use this stuff making cabinets, this stuff here, Type Bond. We glue the face frames under our carcass and stuff. And I'll tell you what, when you had a face frame and you ran that face frame down on the cabinet box and you 18 gauge nail it, if after about 3 minutes you needed to reposition it, you were fighting it. The other thing was, when I built that trailer, that tool trailer thing, those drawers in there were made with 18 gauge nails and this stuff. This stuff is water resistant. I might have even used the waterproof. No dovetails, no biscuit joints, just that glue and 18 gauge nails. That's all I use. So I mismade a drawer box. It was messed up. It was the wrong size or something, so I threw it on the side of the house for trash day. So it sat there all week. It rained one day, soaked it good, rained all day. So come time for trash, I got out there and I started kicking on it, trying to get it, you know, see how much that glue was holding. And I couldn't kick it apart. So after seeing that, I was pretty much sold on it. But it's really remarkable the amount of chemistry, you know, in some of this stuff. So this is something I probably could have gone through here and done ahead of time, but anyway, we'll do, see, 3, 4. We'll do half of them on the camera. There's no reason to actually do the both wing skins. We'll do one so you can see what's going on. Like I said, this isn't the only way, but it's one way. the old-fashioned way. Still works. You know, I was talking to Bob, we were talking about these new airplanes and all this fancy stuff. I'm not going to argue with the PAs and the IC stuff. That's, you know, that's light years ahead of the old Fox 35 things, but some of the airframes are still viable. Talking to Les McDonald at the Worlds, you know, he was just blown away with the power plants they have now and the reliability. And he said, you know, we could have never got that out of a Super Tiger 46. So some things have improved, but I'm not so much sold on maybe the aerodynamics. Maybe in a subtle way, but I don't know. I've seen Billy fly and Paul Walker, and I've seen him put in some flights, and I'd look at it and think, well, I really don't know how you could get it any better under the circumstances. So I'm looking for 7 sheets here. I didn't hand-pick this wood. I went over there on the shelf. I grabbed this wood, whatever it was, it was. Now, one of the things I don't know, you might have noticed when I run this blade down there, I maintain the same angle. Try not to start rocking this blade back and forth. 1, 3, 6, 7. Okay, so these are my 7. And here's the way I like to edge sand them. I like to take, let me get this out of the way. I've covered this before in a couple videos. I'll just use this strip. What I like to do on this glass tabletop, I'll take this piece of wood and I'll lay it on the glass, and I'll pull this back and I'll take the piece of wood and I'll extend it over the glass edge. Let me get rid of some of this paper sticking out. When it comes time to actually work on this glass, I need to double check the shim on it. It's a new piece of glass. I was brazing some copper tube on the edge of the glass and I got it too hot. Ended up cracking the old piece. So I used this bench top MBF as my guide. And you can put them together, just sort of eyeball them to see how they're going. Usually they're pretty close. I mean, a couple kisses with the old sandpaper doesn't hurt. So I got a nick out of this one. We'll put that at the end. I used to have a small glue bottle for CA. I've got a glue bottle that's left over from a construction site, and the thing is huge. So it'll be interesting to see if I can CA these together with any accuracy with that big bottle. We'll find out. I forgot to do one of these edges. We'll revisit it. Some of this wood is SIG, some of it looks like it's Lone Star. Lone Star or something. SIG always had perfect ends on it. Lone Star would have ends that were a little of this and a little of that. They didn't 90 the ends. It was just off the block. Yeah. Yeah, this little sanding deal basically makes it perfect. Now if you start gluing these sheets together and you pinch them together, and the next you do 2 or 3 and then they start to get misaligned where they don't match back up, just move it back over to this edge, clean it up. Depends, sometimes by pinching these sheets together as you subsequently glue them up, sometimes you start building in some stress or something. The sheets will start moving a little bit on you. Spent a little bit more time on this side for some reason. I could see where the blade wandered off. I had sort of a spot there that didn't quite come together. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. I got these 2 to go. You know, this, when I weighed this wood, I think it was, we were looking at 7 or 8 pounds. Seems like it's lighter than that. Maybe by sitting over there underneath the water heater for 30 years made a difference. I've gotten wood, used to buy some wood, but every once in a great while it seemed like it wasn't 100% dry yet. What we got here? Seeing here. Wow, yeah, the XPF foam, 1.5 pounds. That's pretty dang good there. Top blocks, yeah. Yeah, I've never used top blocks out of foam for a control line airplane. We were doing it on this RC stuff. We'd take white bead foam and we'd sheet it and then core it. Worked out really well. Okay, I think we got our 7. I'll see how rusty I am on getting these sheets glued up. This is the huge old honking construction size. Now this stuff here, problem with buying it in this quantity, it might be cheaper overall, but it's more expensive because unless you're out here production building every day, you can't go through that much glue. Maybe some people, but let me move the camera a little bit closer. I'll show you a little bit more about this seam here. See if I can get this camera lined up. Basically, I take this camera and put it on a jug of paint. I clamp it. And this streaming camera's got a feature that when you flip the camera down, basically it goes upside down. Let's see here. We'll give that a shot. Okay, so the way I do this, UCA, I run one strip. First thing I do is I brush off any dust or little chips. Squeeze it together and make sure you got a decent match. And then I pull the full length off. So I'll start on one end, just to hold it down. I'll come back here. I'll pinch it together a little bit like this, and I'll rub it down. And I'll pinch, and I'll go down the sheets as I pinch and rub. And then I just really push it down good. And once I get to that stage, I'll flip it. And then I'll rub it again. And I'll rub all the dust off, you know, make sure it's all good. So here's a spot right here where this sheeting, it's like it chipped out. So I could putty that up later, or we could take care of that now. So I'm going to take care of it now. Cut it on the glass. Yeah, there's just one little spot. Let's see, where was it? It was right here. It's just right here. Yeah, you're better off fixing it now. Take me a minute. Yeah, better off getting the little stuff now. Here's a little story for you. It's sort of OCD. I had some people coming out to install carpet, and it was the last time I ever paid anybody to do that. So they came out. They're going like banshees, you know. So they slapped this carpet down. They put the pad down. And then instead of looking at everything, expecting it, they throw the carpet right down real quick. In the middle of the pad, there's a little wedge like this of padding, like that. And I saw it, and they threw the carpet right over the top of it. I thought, oh man, you know, that it's a little chunk of or a little chunk of foam rubber right in the middle of the room. So the carpet goes down, and you never know it's there until you walk on it, and you have to walk in a certain spot, and you can't see it, but if you're walking in your socks, you can feel it. And every time I'd walk across that little chunk of foam, I'd laugh to myself, you know, why didn't I run out there and grab that little piece of foam? Okay, we're back to square one where we're started. Okay, so at this stage, I take it and I fold it over the edge of the bench. Now this is where you almost have to have the glue to wick. Once you establish a bead, you get it right on the edge, and you watch it, and you make sure that it almost wicks out. And then you immediately roll it up. Make sure that sometimes you can raise the edge and sort of pinch together tight. And it's almost instantaneous when it kicks. When you rub it with dust and paper, this will kick. You don't have to use kicker. And then you pull the tape off, and then you do the same on this side. You rub it. And that's it. Then you go to the next sheet. Now what will happen when you sand these sheets, the side that has the tape on it is going to be a lot less sandy. And sort of pinch as I go. And if you get to the other side, you flip it over and you see gaps or whatever, just go ahead and peel the tape up and start over. I like to pull the tape back and see how I'm doing over here. And push it really tight. Flip it, rub it some more. Pull it to the edge and do the same thing. You make sure the dust is off the tip. And the V of the wood will help guide the tip. So some of you might be wondering, you know, how you going to sand a CA seam. And the other important part of this whole process is your sanding tool. I use a big pad, and it'll become really obvious here when I get to that point how it all works. So I'm still lining up good. Like I said, if something starts to become askew, you just go back to the straight edge and the old sanding block. Get it started. Pinch. So this is the edge lock tape. It doesn't really matter. I've used the regular blue stuff, it's fine. Get some tape gum on the back of that. Yeah, it'll be fun to try some different experiments with some of this different foam, different fiberglass layup ratios for skins, and sort of excited about trying fiberglass cured on the glass and then brought up after it's cured and using that as a skin. It'd be neat to see how that works out. So as you can see, I'm always dropping the short sheet. In order to get this right, you got to have a visual. You got to see the shiny bead. If you don't have the visual, you won't get it. Sometimes it'll skip, and what will happen is you'll be running the bottle and nothing's coming out. So really, this whole process, it goes about as quick as you can run the glue seam. So right now, it looks like we're getting a little bit of a gap. So we have to actually pinch it. I'll flip the sheet over. Let me see what kind of edge I got over here. Yeah, I think if I flip the sheet this way it'll work, and then we'll see what we get over here. One of the things you can do also when you line these sheets up, these are all the same grain. if you have sea grain, you can put that towards the center because that's where your trailing edges will go. So you can position your grain certain ways. Get a pinch on it. I'll inspect it over there. Some of this tape has sticky on the other side. Sticky on the back side. Two more after this. It looks good. If you don't have the tape tight, when you flop this hinge down, you run the risk of the wood moving on you a little bit. So what I'm going to do here on this edge, since it wasn't where I wanted it to be, I'm going to come over here, slide it up to the edge sander deal. This over here. Gets a little bit harder to handle. Leave the straight edge over it. It'll be interesting. I don't know, maybe the leading and trailing edges will be dry enough to where I can razor plane them down. Yeah, I was going to make a fixture to hold that camera. That jug's working out all right. Rotate. Let's be able to turn that off as an auto rotate. Yeah. Gilpster, answer your question. I cut my own foam. The video I did, let's see, yesterday, if you go back yesterday's live stream, it's a really long video. It's like 2 hours. And you're going to have to fast forward, you know, probably to get what you want. But I actually cut the foam wings on the video. There's some videos that I had a while back that show me coring the thing out. There's some videos probably years ago that actually show me explaining the foam cutter. So if you dig through just a little bit, you'll be able to find what you need. Let's see, what was the other question? Yeah, the auto rotate thing, I'll get into that. So this camera stuff, I sort of look at it like an airplane. So when you're trimming an airplane out, if something isn't right and you're trying to figure something out, the rule of thumb is you only do one thing at a time. So if something doesn't seem right, so you get your airplane and you slide your lead out back and you change your tip weight and you tweak your flaps all at the same time. Once you put up a flight, you don't know what's working and what's not. And that's sort of my attitude with this OBS software. It's just like baby steps. and I keep going back and perfecting it. So the first video I put up with the OBS, I think it came out like a thumbnail for the whole video. So I went back and I had to change the, I don't know, what, somehow I accidentally found out how to change it, the aspect ratio, and you got two windows going, and one is for something and something else. So I just try to inch my way through there and do one thing at a time. In some ways that auto rotate is okay, I guess, but I don't know in my case if it really works that well. Sort of aggravating. I guess I'd like to be able to auto rotate, but on my own terms, you know, where I could do it sometimes and it wouldn't be automatic. So this is what I like to do. I like to do one panel sheeting. Instead of sanding the top sheeting and the bottom sheeting, I like to make it all in one panel, and then I sand the whole sheet together, and it'll become obvious how it works out. So at least you got real time how long it takes to do a wing skin up to this point. This big glue bottle isn't as bad as I thought it'd be. It's a small enough hole in the tip of this thing. It tip on it that it came with it sort of cracked and was leaking around the edge. So I put one of these SIG CA tips on it, and then I put some heat shrink on it, you know, to hold it in place. So I've got it sort of rigged up there to work. And I don't care what you do. I mean, if it's white glue, I don't care what kind of glue it is, epoxy, whatever. The thing is with this a glue seam, it'll always show up eventually. You know, things change, humidity, wood expands, it contracts, I don't know. If you ever see furniture like IKEA stuff, when they run a stile and a rail, which is like the frame to a door, you'll see a V notch in there. Well, they cut a V and everybody think, well, that's a cool feature. No, they cut the V in there because if they run a perfect seam, eventually you'll be able to see it. Maybe not with MDF, but it's a feature that allows them to hide the seam by even making it more pronounced, I guess. Now, here's the thing. You got this glass. What you want to do, you have to make sure that when you start sanding on this glass, you're not sanding over a bunch of bumps. So you got to go through here and you got to clean off all the CA. And the best way of doing it, just run your hand over it. That's how I clean a bench top, by feeling it. Now if you have a glob of glue on the glass and you start sanding your wing skin on top of that, you're going to sand a crater into your skin. And I do the same thing with the sheeting like this. I rub it, make sure there's no bumps, or it all seems sort of common sense, but it's something to pay attention to. Okay, let me walk over there to my drawer box, and I've got some sandpaper. I'm going to show you how I sand these skins. Okay, this is probably 30 years old. It's a plate of aluminum, and I took this aluminum plate, looks like 1/4 inch, and I used contact cement, I can't even remember what I used, to adhere the sandpaper to the aluminum. To get this aluminum flat, basically I lapped it in, okay? Kept sanding it till it's perfectly flat. And then I radiused the corners just a little bit around them. This paper here was sold on a lineal foot. They sell this stuff at the at least the big box stores or a floor place. The lineal foot was for the floor sanders, the belt sanders. So you'd buy this stuff and you'd wrap it through the belt sander and then somehow terminate it. But this was made to sand wood floors, and it's 100 grit. 100 grit seems pretty aggressive, but what happens when you enlarge the surface area, the grit becomes less aggressive, I guess what I want to say. So this pad worked out great. 100 grit, I put it on both sides, same thing, 100. So that worked out great. Now fast forward to today, I did this sort of like an experiment. This was a piece of marble left over from a bathroom remodel. And the marble was perfectly flat. So what I did is I took 2 strips of this 3M sandpaper, and this is 80 grit. I haven't used this yet. So what I did is enlarged it and then went with a coarser grit. So we'll see what happens with this. I know how this works. I just wanted to see how this reacts. The secret here is flat. You know, everything's got to be flat. So to start out with, you know, stick with the grain. You know, run it long grain. The nice thing about this, at least up in what I can tell, the weight of the marble, basically you don't even have to push. You just sort of even lift up. You can actually just run this over the balsa wood, and the weight of the marble is all you need for the pressure. So the side I'm sanding now is the side that didn't have the tape on it. And when you do these skins, you're going to find out that there's more disparity on the edge on the non-tape side than the tape side. So as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see or not, by feeling it, that ridge is going down. You're actually sanding the high point and everything around it. Try to concentrate on the edges too. Matter of fact, as I'm sanding, I'm lifting up just a little bit on this. Whatever you do, don't drop this thing when you pick it up. So you can see some of the glue right here where it came out of the seam. You just keep sanding and that seam will disappear. Now I suppose you could actually go at an angle or cross grain, but I think stick with the grain. So I just like to I tap it and then I'll scrape the dust off. I'll do this a little bit. What will happen is the dust will flow out. The other thing you can do is this a little bit, distributes the dust. So you start out with 16th. Now you can mic this stuff, I guess, if you wanted to get really creative. You're probably going down to 1/20th. If you do 1/32nd, you're not going to be able to sand a whole lot. You'll still be able to sand a little bit, but start out at the 16th. So the 80 grit with this is working out great. Now, to give you an idea, the surface area, 16 3/4 by 6. I just pay attention to where that seam is. Once the seam disappears and the glue that's oozed out of the seam disappears, and I quit. If you wanted to improve upon this a little bit, I suppose you could probably put a JB Weld, a nice grip to it. Now this marble, I actually stuck the sandpaper to the glossy side. So that feels really good. It's all the CA is in the joint. There's nothing that came out on the wood. And as far as the surface finish, this is still fine. I mean, you can tell it's been sanded. So back to the 100, this will put a finer finish on it a little bit. The 80 on the marble seems like it's it got it down to where it's really flat really quick. And this 100, which is sort of wore out, probably more like 120, 180. It's putting a finer finish on it. Now obviously, when it comes time to sheet the wing, you want to fire up the vacuum cleaner. So when you start putting glue on this sheeting, you want to make sure the cores are vacuumed. There's a video on me putting epoxy on some sheeting. Yeah, it's the same process. It's like the squeegee method. So there's a couple spots here I'll go over. Now if there's glue seepage or whatever, you know, you keep sanding until whatever's on top of that wood is gone. And you really end up with a really good sheet of balsa wood. And I always like to leave, I don't go for complete perfection, I guess. I get it pretty close. I always like to leave a little bit of meat to sand when it's on the core. So that's how long it takes me to do the sheet. Now this this wing, see where the stuff's curling out, which is okay. It's already tacked up enough. So the way these cores are positioned on the sheet is I run them at an angle. I'll put the grain parallel to the leading edge, my preference. I'm not really sure if it makes a lot of difference, but that's the way I've done it. The other thing with this tape, and I didn't do it on this core, and the reason why the tape might be popping up a little bit, I didn't vacuum these cores. I sort of thought about that after the fact, why the tape is coming up a little bit. So one core will be lined up like this, the other core will be flipped over like this. So let's see here. If I run out of wood, I can always put more on the edge. I can run another sheet out here. I might have to do that. Yeah, I might have to put a little bit more out there. We'll see. It's pretty tight the way it is. I'm not looking for a world champion wing here, just something somewhat competitive. This is a USA 1 wing. It's the like a Geo XL, and it's a thicker airfoil than what was on the plans. A lot of people told me that if you can't build the airplane at 50 some ounces like Billy built it, you might as well go ahead and thicken the airfoil up a 1/4 inch, which is what I did. Man, that's so close. I don't know. I think I got to put a little strip down the edge. Let's see how much I got here. Now, if you vacuum bag sheeting, it's not that big a deal because you have time to position it. But I'll tell you what, if you go with this contact cement and you go to lay that core down, it's like, wow, it better be exactly where you need it, because you can't pop it up and reposition it. If you ever get to the point where you set the wing and you're off an 1/8 inch or something, don't even try to reposition it. Keep it going. Once the skin is on there, you can add a strip later, but don't try to pull it up. So we were doing a project for a friend of mine. Kid was in Scouts. We were doing this veneered box, and they ran this veneer down on this box, and it was off probably a 1/4 inch. I said, don't even worry about it, just let it go. And we cut another strip, you know, glued it in there, and you can't even tell. So I'm going to true this edge up on my sheeting here, and I'm going to glue on one more strip, and I think I'll just glue the whole sheet on, I guess. So try to maintain vertical. I was doing one cut when I was on the plastic, it was working out. If you feel resistance or whatever, take 2 or 3 swipes to get through the piece of wood. Sometimes if you try to go through one cut, once to follow the grain, you end up with a wonky edge. So you can tell by feeling the disparity in the thickness. So it's probably closer to 120. So what's going to happen is, the way this tape's going down, it looks like the flat edge will be against the glass. I can sort of feel it. Let's see, flip it over and see what we got. Yeah. Alright, let's get this glued up real quick. Try to keep my dust off the tip here. That allows me to run this edge up next to the wood. Alright. Tell you another thing. When it comes to stuff like this, or masking off an airplane or taping, cut back on your coffee or let it soak in a little bit. Drink 3 cups of coffee out here and you try to run a line down a piece of wood, you'll be fighting it. You'll feel it kick, you know, it's comes through the paper there. Feel it kicking off on you. Let's see if you have any comment. Let's see here, if I'm clear. Yeah, hardwood veneer. You know, I thought of that. I was in, let's see here. This is oak veneer. It's quarter and rift sawn. This is the stuff we were doing the project with. And this veneer, it's got paper back, so you've added extra weight to it. It's beautiful veneer. You know, they book match it. This is more like a rift cut, but some of it's quartered. And we'd veneer boxes and woodwork with this stuff. It looks beautiful. Now, you can get this stuff without the paper back, and you can also get it in like poplar, or you know, you can get it in different types of wood, and it might be worth looking at. I mean, I know it would work for RC stuff. You know, a buddy of mine showed me these plans. It was a Hostetler, let's see, a Citabria, and it looked like, according to the plans, it looked like just a big Comet airplane. You know, the old Comet planes, the stick and tissue things. And it looked like you could almost build that airplane without any balsa wood. You could just do poplar and spruce, and you could go to the, I don't want to say a lumber yard, but you go to one of these woodworking places and you buy, you know, really nice stuff. So, yeah, that's worth looking into too. One of the things I used to do, I used to keep a diary of everything I did. And I need to get back to doing that. So let's just say on this sheeting, you know, I've got all this sheet here. And at one time, you know, here's the weight, 8.9 grams, 10.2, you know, 10, 9.2. So what I do is I'd actually write down the gram of each sheet that I put into this skin. And I'd weigh the glue and I'd write that down. I'd weigh everything, the core, the glue, the wood. So that way, months later or a year, I could go back and say, well, this is what the outcome of XYZ is. So I need to get back to doing that. But what I'd like to do is have a video series set up of nothing but numbers. All this stuff, the weights of everything, different types of glue, what works, what doesn't. And at one time I had a bunch of these things, and I might have had 6 or 8, and I had blocks of foam, and I'd put Gorilla Glue here, 3M77 here, and then I do one vacuum bag with Gorilla Glue, and I'd vacuum bag with epoxy. I'd go through the whole thing, and then I do epoxy on 3 of them. I do epoxy to where it was sort of dry, it was all wiped off, one that was medium and one that was wet, and I delaminate them, you know, after the fact, to see what worked and what didn't, and how much weight each one was. But that would be valuable if somebody could watch a video, instead of saying, well, I think it's this, or my prejudice is if you do this or that, have it in hard factual numbers. And sometimes people, they don't deal with the numbers enough. They deal with what they've known before, which is good. People build up a bank in their mind of what has worked for them. But when you start dealing with different things, different materials, it's good to know the numbers. And that was the gist of it, talking to Paul Walker at the Worlds and the Nat. You're talking about the weight of carbon and how heavy it is. And it is heavy. You can't beat this wood and carbon fiber. Well, the carbon with the epoxy in it, even with pre-preg. So that I told him, I said, well, the only way to really find out is just start running numbers, you know. And I know what the numbers are going to tell me. So if you use carbon fiber, you have to put it in the right place sparingly. Because if you laid out a sheet with like 6-ounce carbon cloth and lather it up with resin for a wing skin, I know what's going to happen. So the only reason they can do that on full-scale aviation because it's replacing aluminum. So this is more sanding right here because I'm getting this last sheet in line with the rest of them. I'm putting all my pressure on this last sheet. I'm trying not to go out in the rest of the wood. It's coming in nice. It's fine. So the other thing is, you guys making comments and asking questions, it'll get me thinking, it'll help me for things that I haven't thought about before. And it'll also give me ideas for future videos, you know. Something that somebody might have questions about that I don't know, that I can could do a video on it. Now if you ever get a dent in the wood, you might have saw me do it, take a little spit. So not a sanding dent, but a dent where you push down on it. And what happens when you wet that dent, it pops it back up. So sometimes you put a little wet spot there, and Now right here at the edge, it looked like it was a little thick. The sheets were a little proud of the seam. So I'll take the liberty right here on the edge to go across at an angle. And you can hear it each time it goes over a seam, you hear a clacking noise. So now I got a wing skin that will take both cores with in the spare. Now obviously the next wing skin, you know, would fit on top of both of this, or you could just do this side, and then of course when this sheet comes you flip it to go here. So anyway, that's the that's that. Well, let's see if this is cure enough where I could razor plane it. It's amazing how fast that glue tacks up. I got two razor planes. I got this David combi plane, which is really good. And then I've got this little master air screw. The other option is, some people have done it where they actually sheet the wing and then they glue the leading and trailing edge on. I like to run the sheeting over the top, so that hides that seam. Plus you get an overlapping bond of your leading and trailing edge. I think it adds some strength to it. If you run these razor planes and it's starting to bite, sometimes you can go the other way. So they like to go, the razor plane likes to go when the grain is like this. If the grain is coming up and you're running the razor plane like that, it'll catch. Maybe not so much on balsa, but when you start getting into hardwood, you're going to find out that it wants to go one way. And sometimes you don't have any options. You're only one way you can go, but what you do is just take less shallow cuts and more of them. So you can see how quick it got down to the almost to the core. You know, you're only going maybe, I don't know, not going that deep. You're leaving maybe a 64, 1/32. And then I'll go ahead and I'll sand the rest in. So technically, if you're doing this stuff, time-wise, you could cut a core to this stage. You saw how long it took to do the leading and trailing edge. You saw how long it took to do the sheeting. The next step would be, after this is sanded, the leading and trailing edge, is to actually get the glue on the sheeting and vacuum bag it down to the core. So from the core to the bag sheeting would be 1 day. Easily. So if you're set up for it. Once the core comes out of the bag, then the next day you could actually go ahead and core the core out. Now, I'm not sure how I want to do the spar here. Before I put the sheeting on, I'm going to determine what I'm going to do with the spar. I might do a light ply, or I might do a balsa carbon thing. I'll get my components on a scale and see where I'm at. Now obviously this wing is not going to have a wing mounted gear. If you had clips and a spar, you'd have to put that in there before you do the leading edge. So this wing is cut for a fused gear, so keep that in mind. There'll be other videos. I got a slotter. I'll show you how to slot the foam this way, you know, for your gear clips or whatever. And that should be done before you do the sheeting, whether it's molded balsa leading edge or this stuff. You know, back in the old days, they sold a Geeski Nobler, I think it was Top Flight, and it came with molded shells. And that the wood in that kit was, at least the one I saw, was terrible. And it sort of turned me off because the wood was so bad in it. But some of this stuff, you know, that I know Bob Hunt's done a lot of it in different modelers with the mold box. It's a whole different game. They've got accurate mold box. They've got control of the whole situation. So it used to be when you buy the kit, it would have half molded pieces of wood that were heavy and cracked, and they wouldn't conform to the shape that it was supposed to be. And I thought, man, that's not a good idea. But when I started to see what some of these modelers could kick out with their mold box and their really good wood, it made a believer out of me. So now this one here, the wire, just maybe like a 64, was a little on the corner. It sort of burnt the corner barely. It's perfect here and here. So what I'll do when I get this leading or trailing edge sanded on the same plane, I might just run a little bit of lightweight spackle in that little crack, you know, to keep that wood from sinking in. So got to be able to adjust on the fly. So not only do I visually watch what I'm doing, I also take my thumb and I'll run it over there to see how close I'm getting. It's like out here, you can lop these off. Don't need to worry about that now, sticking out. That's a good sharp one. It must be new. I take some of those blades a while back. I buy these Zona saws, and I'd pry this blade out of this, whatever this they call this here, the backbone of the saw. I'd spring it and I'd pull this blade out and I'd flip it over so it'd make a pole saw. I don't know if it was worth it or not, but I did it. Some of the really good saws are the Japanese pole saws. And the reason why the pole saws are so good is if you're pushing, it wants to buckle the blade. If you're actually pulling the blade while it's cutting, then it doesn't want to buckle on you. You get an accurate cut. Yeah, hopefully this year with the gnats up there, I'm not gonna fly in it obviously, But see if I can drag some of the camera gear back up there. I've done a few things. Number one thing I did, I don't know if you got on SmugMug and looked at some of the photos, but one of the things I was having problems with the Worlds and the Nats with the camera I had, when I put the really long lens on it and I wanted to take a movie or a video shot, well, to actually hold that camera for that long was almost impossible. So even on short video clips, it was iffy. So what I did, months ago, I bought a gimbal head for the camera. So I'll be able to set the camera up with a really long lens and then get a video clip. Now at this stage, I just leave it on the glass, and I like to bar sand this. Another way of doing it is like this trailing edge. Just keep me from digging into the glass here. I put the trailing edge just right next to the glass and hold up. And I'll sand it in that way. Now the leading edge, I'll slowly work it down to the foam. Now, this is a good time to get some center lines on the leading and trailing edge. So I'll lightly sand it flush. And I'll transfer this out. I'll run another center line down there. So that's pretty much the gist of it. So I'm at a good stopping point. You saw me take the leading and trailing edge, install it, and razor plane it. The skin, the takeaway on the skin, I think the important thing is the flat glass, taping the seams upright, sanding the seams, and these pads. These were a game changer for me. If you had a pad this size and it's done right, it's hard to sand a gouge in the skin. It's so much surface area and it evens it out. It's almost like going through an expensive belt sander. So those were game changers. Now, used to be I'd sand a core like this, you know, with one of these sanders, and basically what would happen, it looked good from straight on, but when you'd candle it, you'd see divots and you'd see all kinds of crazy stuff where you sanded too much or not enough. So the pad for the whole skin is a game changer. And if you get a seam, it's like, yeah, there's a little teeny spot. Don't worry, you get it 90%, and then the rest can happen on the core. And so when I turn the camera back on to do some more stuff, these will be ready to be skinned with epoxy. And these will go in the vacuum bag. So I'll do that. The other thing I'll probably do a little bit on, I'll get my mold out, and it's time to probably get some wax on the inside. This was from the other day. Let's open this up. I tape it up, and I had it in the warming box like 100 degrees here to get even more of a cure on it. So we'll deal with this on another video too. I'm going to go in there and do a little buffing. You know, it's good enough here, but do a little buffing, and then I'll go ahead and I'll wax them, PVA them. Now this is going to be like a room temp mold with high temp resin. I'll do the post cure on the part after I make it. So I think I'll do another one of these molds, and I'll pay a little bit more attention to certain things because I want it to go in the autoclave. So the surface coat turned out really good. Still got the PVA on it on this one. So I'll buff these out. I think the first part I'm going to make out of this thing will be with West Systems. I'll take maybe some splooge or whatever. I'll fill in these voids, the tight spots, put some carbon toe in there, and then I'll start out with maybe a ½ ounce, ¾ ounce, and then I'll build it up a little bit. I'll just use West Systems, you know, just to get a generic part, nothing special, but it'll work. Guy in the club, all he used was West Systems on all his turbine jet stuff. So this one's a little bit thicker. I had a little bit thicker layer of filler in it, DTO81. I backed this off a little bit with a little bit less filler. You can tell it's a little bit thinner, but it's still adequate. This one's really good, but this one's still good. It built up really well with that 9.6 ounce glass, and so I'm happy with it. I'm excited about getting this together. So the whole idea on this pod, and I've mentioned it before, is an experiment to try this mold stuff out. And with the pod was going to be one of these things where, if you can imagine it, you can take this pod, an RC pod, and you could build a pylon on it, and you could put a sailplane wing on it. And this thing would turn into a floater. You know, you'd have a glass tube, you know, coming back for your fuselage that would come out. This would be cut out at an angle. It's a scoop. Keep all your stuff cool from the scoop. But it would be a floater, you know. Or you could take this pod and you could run a tube through it for a spar, put a smaller wing on it, and a big old motor, and a big old carbon tube out the back, and you could have a hot dog airplane, you know. So the purpose of this is just to show the pod would be so versatile as far as wing, stab, all the configurations. You could go from a sailplane floater with this thing all the way up to something really fast. Now if you look at all these old airplanes, and you have to go back quite a ways, they have these old airplanes that had these round fuselages, and there's one that was built up with balsa and stringers, and it was sort of like this. It was a pod with a boom on it, and it had a big type of floater wing on it. So I sort of got the idea from that. So this has been done before. It's nothing new with this pod. If you go back far enough, you can see examples of this. Obviously not in carbon fiber or whatever back then, but yeah, that was the idea. And anyway, the landing gear, the way this is set up, let's see here. I had, if I can find it, the way it was set up, this was like a gear from the whole shot. and it was set up for the same gear, so you know it'll have a carbon fiber landing gear. There's a flat spot on this pod like right here, so I already got the gear for it. Slap some foam wings on it and we'll have some fun with it. So that's about it. We'll do more of this later, and we'll get the old West system or the HTR 250, make some parts. I gotta bolt these things together too. Once you bolt them together, I'm going to cut the front of this mold out where the engine mounts, so I'll be able to look down in there. The back of this will probably, it'll be cut out like this, sort of like a curve. It'll be open in back where the fuselage goes, and at the time when this is open and the back is open, I'll be able to go down in there with a brush and like seaming tape, and I'll join the two halves together in the mold, so that way when I open the mold I can pull out one part that's it's already put together. So anyway, that's how that works. So I'll get off here. It's about lunchtime. Cut the grass. Yeah, 12:56. No wonder why I was hungry. Thanks for coming by and watching. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy them. I enjoy making them. So I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.